comes this time each year. Well, way up north where the air gets cold, there's a tale about Christmas that you've all been told, and a real famous cat all dressed up in red.
Good evening, Oakland and beyond. Hope everybody is doing great out there in Oakland, East Bay, and beyond, wherever you are tuning in from on this cold Monday night in the East Bay. Kind of a little bit mixture of some cloud cover spots here and there. Semi-clear, but yeah, a little cold, which is the norm this time of year in the Deep East, the East Bay, and the Bay Area in general. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Let's go ahead and get another exciting edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland athletics underway. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to show number 83. It is the Christmas edition of AsFAnRAdio. What's going on, everybody? It is the legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown checking in with you from the new Dub 6 Studios located up in the Eastmont Hills overlooking the Deep East here in Oakland, California. As I mentioned, another chilly night here in the Deep East. One thing that's just baffled me over the years, out of everywhere I've gone in my life, you figure somewhere like, New York City would be colder than it is out here. Probably the only place that I've been to that's, probably been the coldest place I've been to at this point in my life is Chicago. But there's just something about this Bay Area cold, man, that just sometimes, gets basically to your bones damn near. That's just is ridiculous and crazy and just baffling at times, regardless if you've lived out here your whole life, if you're an individual that just comes out and visits periodically, if you're individual that's relocated to the region at some point during your life. It's just baffling, man. Definitely looking forward to having another exciting edition of the show on tap for y'all this evening. And I will be coming at you solo for this edition of the show. I will not be joined by the other half of Internet Radio's dynamic duo, or most dynamic duo, or simply the dynamic duo, as, of course, the main man, the boss man, has the night off this evening, as today is my man's 38th birthday, so he is probably out and about doing something socially distanced and quarantine-wise, or who knows what. Y'all know my man. He works over there at Kaiser, so he's definitely on top of following the guidelines as well as anybody out there with this whole damn crazy COVID-19 pandemic still running amok, not just here in the state, but across the country as well. So main man taking the night off, enjoying his 38th birthday out with the boss lady and the boss daughter. Boss man, you take care. Enjoy your evening. Don't get too trashed out there, though that might be a little bit of an understatement, knowing how my main man can get when he parties it up at times. And most likely, given the circumstances of what's going on right there, I'm pretty sure my man, most likely, he's probably just somewhere local, probably just kicking it at the boss pad in Alameda for all we know. But again, happy 38th birthday to the main man, the boss man. Enjoy your evening off. And, of course, the rest of y'all, like I said, are going to be stuck with me for the duration of this entire broadcast. A's Talk will be coming your way in a bit. Really only one kind of big piece of A's news to touch bases on, which we will get into during the second segment of this evening's broadcast. And it also happens to play around part of a two-part fan question for this edition of the show, which I will get more into when we get near the tail end of the first segment of tonight's broadcast. And obviously a lot of other MLB-related news as well. Not so much anything free agent-wise. You check out there. I mean, God, this free agent period is moving slower than molasses. You've really only had 3 or 4 moves, at least, guys at the major league level that would be considered any sort of significant move happen since you entered the free agency period, since the winter meetings went down. It's just, baffling, and a lot of that is because of the uncertainty of the pandemic. But definitely a couple pieces of baseball news coming out over the last couple weeks that really don't have to do so much with individuals signing with new teams or re-signing with current teams being moved via trades and all that. Not so much having to do with the players' shuffle of the hot stove that is the offseason of Major League Baseball, but a move going down, and there's actually 2 moves that are very significant. I consider them to be very significant. I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there have been following them, consider this to be significant as well. We'll get into one of those subjects right now, and then we'll, of course, get into the other subject roughly about around the third segment of the show. So after we touch basis on the piece of A's talk that I want to touch on for this edition of the broadcast. But I wanted to go ahead and lead things off tonight with, of course, the news that came down last Wednesday, December the 16th, when MLB, after a long time of obviously many out there in the baseball world, saying something about it for many years. The last time the league convened in the 60s to incorporate some old independent leagues into quote-unquote major league status. This group of individuals wasn't even brought up in conversation at the table the last time that they brought in stuff like the Federal League and some of those other independent leagues that were basically grandfathered Major League Baseball, the equivalent of Major League Baseball status when all that convened. Now was some of that because of racism, nobody bringing it up, combination of both. Who really knows? That's ultimately for, folks out there to be the judge of. But the point is, it was finally done, move that was long overdue, and kind of fitting, too, that it goes down during the 100th anniversary of these individual leagues that basically made up the historic Negro Leagues of professional baseball across the country. And, of course, the news coming down last Wednesday that MLB officially has elevated Negro Leagues to Major League status, giving overdue recognition to over 3,040 players. MLB will also recognize records and stats from those same 3,400 players who played in the Negro Leagues between 1920 and 1948. Last Wednesday, Major League Baseball officially elevated the Negro Leagues to Major League status. Commissioner Rob Medford described the maneuver as correcting a long-time oversight in the game's history. Heading forward, MLB will recognize the statistics and records of approximately 3,400 players who partook in the 7 leagues between 1940 and 1928. Here's more courtesy of MLB's press release. This long overdue recognition is the product of evaluation throughout this year, which included consideration of discussions with the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum and other baseball entities, the previous and ongoing studies of baseball authors and researchers, the 2006 study by the National Baseball Hall of Fame, the Negro League Researchers and Authors Group, and an overall historical record that has expanded in recent years. In particular, MLB commends the work of Gary Aswell, Scott Smikus, Mike Lynch, and Kevin Johnson, who drove the construction of the Steamheads Negro League database, and Larry Lester, whose decades-long research underlines and adds to their work. MLB credits all of the baseball research community for discovering additional facts, statistics, and context that exceed the criteria used by the Special Committee on Baseball Records in 1969 to identify 6 major leagues since 1876. It is MLB's view that the committee's 1969 omission of the Negro Leagues from the consideration was clearly an error that demands today's designation. MLB's press release names the following leagues as those being elevated. Give me a second here so that way I can make sure I pull up that image for you so that way y'all can see. Okay, never mind. Those are the Hall of Famers on there. There we go. Real quickly up there I go, clicking on multiple links instead of giving them. The 7 leagues that, of course, that have been elevated are the Negro National League, also known as Negro League One, which played from 1920 to 1931, the Eastern Colored League, which was in existence from 1923 to 1928, the American Negro League, which played in 1929, the East-West League, which existed in 1932, the Negro Southern League, which existed in 1932, the Negro National League 2, which is also known as Negro League 2, which existed from 1933 to 1948, and the Negro American League, which existed from 1937 to 1948. MLB, of course, celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Negro Leagues during the 2020 season, with the league-wide celebration taking place on August 16th. Also released as well was a statement from, of course, bring it up here is just another copy of that statement that Robert Manfred ended up releasing when this news was announced last Wednesday. 35 Hall of Famers that are in the Professional Baseball Hall of Fame who ultimately at some point, some of these individuals actually didn't even get a chance to play Major League Baseball, and if they did in some cases, it wasn't until late in their career. One of the prime examples up there is Satchel Paige, who basically pitched a couple innings in a game for the Kansas City A's, and by that point he was like in his late 50s, early 60s, damn near. But a lot of individuals who probably you aren't even listed amongst these 35 Hall of Famers that you're looking at on your screen right now, that for many long decades, without, just, pretty much almost being lost to the winds of history, if it weren't for the fact that you had many individuals out there who kept as diligent track of these records as they could. And obviously, with the advancements in technology that you've had the last couple of years, that's even opened up the possibilities to get access to even more data from these various leagues, as obviously some information has been put out there, because they've used a whole sorts of things to basically help compile all the stats they have from these 7 leagues from this basically 20, 30-year period that these 7 leagues existed at some point in time. And excuse me. Just to let you all know, don't trip. Did a little medical research before the show, so it's kind of taking in a little effect at the moment. Anyway, pretty much they've compiled a lot of these stats from either old box scores, newspaper clippings, stuff that was written down on photos that were taken at games, notes that were written down by individuals either working at these games or fans at these games. So they've done a whole lot of research to compile all this information, and it's being added to pretty much, I don't know exactly how often, but pretty much they've confirmed that data is continuing to roll in to either players that are already existing in the database, and even in some instances probably individuals that have yet to be added to the database. And it also is going to be very interesting to see, since now MLB is going to consider records set by these individuals in these leagues to be part of the major league records. It's going to be real interesting to see when individuals that partook in both the Negro Leagues and the major leagues, seeing their totals from the 2 leagues combined as a complete overall statistic. Seen a few minor hustles and fussles out there about this, kind of pretty obvious to me. Probably the stance of those individuals, they're just either completely blind and unaware to what's been happening, or you get the drift on what the other most likely option is in regards to that. This is definitely something that is long overdue, should have had some sort of consideration in 1969. The last time they looked at elevating some of these leagues to major league status. And again, it's mind-baffling that you hear all these years later that none of these leagues were even mentioned in the conversation in 1969. And just, again, it's crazy, it was because of, racism. You did have the civil rights movement kind of still getting into effect roughly around that end of the time, heading into the beginning of the 70s, Vietnam going on, all sorts of crazy stuff. Just really mind-boggling looking back here, all these decades later, and trying to wrap your hand around why it wasn't brought up. It's hard to understand why it wasn't brought up, but given the context of the time period, unfortunately, it's understandable. And it's just great to finally see, after all this time, something that should have been handled either there in 69, even in the 70s, even in the 80s, in the 90s. The bottom line is, this is something that should have been corrected and addressed a long time ago. And regardless how you feel of how long it took, it's just, it's great that this finally happened. And I I applaud everyone that was involved in having this process happen. And that even includes Manfred, regardless if he probably had a minor role in, regardless of how some of us might feel about the individual and some of the other stuff he did. But again, just great to finally see this happen. It was long overdue, and just was kind of unfortunate, really, that you couldn't, get the chance to fully enjoy the 100th anniversary of many of these great players who, unfortunately, because of the color barrier and segregation that was going on in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, a lot of these guys that easily could have, ran the table as Major League Baseball players were denied the opportunity to do that until you finally had the chance to see some of these guys could do that after Jackie Robinson broke in with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. Again, just long overdue, and I'm thrilled to see it happen. Definitely will be interesting to obviously hear Boss Man's take on this, and I'll have to make sure the next time we have him on the show to get his input on this matter. And definitely, again, will be interesting to see how a lot of the records going forward are going to be affected and adjusted based on these stats now being added to the major league record. So definitely will be an interesting development to go continue to go forward, and also be interesting as well as time goes on to see what other members of those leagues that may not have their stats on record ultimately get added to that. Real quickly, before we take our first break of the night here on the Christmas edition of AsFAnRadio, this is the first opportunity I wanted to remind everybody out there that there is a fan question of the night for this edition of the show. So go ahead and make your way over to either Facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or our Twitter page at As_fan_radio to submit your response to the fan question of the night for this edition of the show. It's a two-part question this go-round. The first part being, we want to hear your thoughts on what Scott Boras had to say recently about the Oakland Athletics. And the second part being, we want to just hear your thoughts in general about any other subject that we happen to touch bases on over the course of the evening, regardless if it's the subject that I just discussed here, which was MLB elevating the Negro Leagues to Major League status, the fact that I'll be talking about one of the teams in Major League Baseball will be changing its name after next season. We'll, of course, get more into that during the third segment of tonight's show. Pretty much, anything. The Cal talk I'm going to do, the fact that I'm going to be reviewing the latest edition of of a Star Wars series out there that some of you I'm pretty sure damn familiar with at this point. Again, anything we touch bases on tonight, as well as along with sharing your take on what Scott Boras had to say about the A's recently. Share your response, and of course, yours truly here will read your responses on air live here on the show at the end of this evening's broadcast. And one other thing as well, just wanted to give a quick shout out to Chad Jarvis at CJarvis28 on Twitter, one of our many followers out there on social media, who tagged us in this little makeshift hat collection / Christmas image that he's got displayed over at his pad there. Chad, of course, is known for showing all sorts of various displays of his various things from his hat collection, his fandom collection up there. So definitely give Chad a follow on Twitter and check him out. He's posted a couple other great little A's tidbits with this little Christmas holiday background behind it. So again, check him out at CJarvis28 on Twitter to see what he's got in his collection, and just some great tweets from him as well, and just other stuff out there. Just, again, one of the many great A's fans out there that follows this show. We come back, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that were wondering as far as what I was alluding to with the fan question of the night. If you didn't happen to hear about what Scott Boras had to say, well, we're going to touch bases on that when we come back at you from our first break of the evening here on show number 283, the Christmas edition of A's Fan Radio. I'm not going to lie to y'all, ladies and gentlemen. I was actually initially leading into this upcoming week, was kind of being a little bit hesitant on if I was going to end up using Christmas music or not for this edition of the show. Of course, as many of you might remember, my aunt was murdered in an arson fire back near the end of July earlier this year, and reason being that I was kind of lightweight to debating on what to do with that is this was her favorite holiday time of the year. She was a big Christmas nut. She would basically go and completely decorate the hell out of the outside of the house, the inside of the house, would go and get Christmas get-ups for the dogs. One thing, of course, that happened at times, during the years is when myself before I get tongue-twisted here, sorry about that. There were several times over the years where basically if my parents were short on cash and couldn't afford to get me and my siblings gifts, Santa Claus? Who's Santa Claus? You're talking about Aunt Di-Di. My aunt would come in and basically save the day and bail the fam out and, chip in or sometimes even fully throw in to get gifts for us. So that way, just make sure that we would have some way to be able to enjoy Christmas. And, it's a holiday that, for most of my life, for pretty much all of my life, I always looked forward to because of the enthusiasm and the energy and effort that my aunt put into it, and how it basically kind of always motivated the whole family to come together at this time of the year, regardless of shenanigans and BS that might have gone down throughout the course of the year. And I, find myself here, here we are 4 days away from Christmas 2020, and I'm dreading Christmas for the first time ever in my life, which is kind of understandable given the circumstances. But I also thought at the same time, hey, if I didn't use Christmas music on this show, my aunt would probably come down, pay me a visit later tonight, and kick my ass. So, yeah, y'all can thank the spirit of my aunt for motivating me to do the norm with this Christmas edition of the show and continue to use Christmas music on it like we've always have since I brought in the off-season editions of the show when we came back in 2011. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is show number 283, the Christmas edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, A's Fan Radio. It is the Legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown coming at you solo for this edition of the broadcast. Checking in, of course, with y'all from the new Dub 6 studios located up in the Eastmont Hills, overlooking the Deep East and the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum over here in Oakland, California. Guess you could officially now call it the Ring Central Coliseum, as I guess apparently Ring Central got a free year pass on the naming rights, as there was a whole dispute going on because of the way that former Coliseum Authority Director Scott McKeeben had basically tried to charge Ring Central a personal transaction fee basically for his services and stuff. So they apparently just recently renegotiated a whole new deal with members of Ring Central that weren't tied to McKeeben's negotiations when all this crap went down, and they've negotiated a new deal, set payment to pay out certain things over the course of per month because of COVID if that goes on, and then once COVID ends, they'll basically be playing $1.1 million a year for the naming rights deal. I got to check up basically at some point how long that is for information that I think I would have for y'all. Next show, something really that I didn't feel important because, we've pretty much all been referring to it, not wanting to refer to as but looking at there, seeing the signs up there, but also at the same time knowing that whole situation was going on. So it's kind of nice to know what's going on. But like many of y'all, I'm pretty sure that y'all are going to, for the most part, the majority of you out there are still going to refer to it as the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum or Rickey Henderson Field at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, regardless what the naming rights are going forward with that. One other thing kind of I want to touch bases on, too, before we go ahead and move on with things here in tonight's broadcast. And you can consider this to be the ultimate A's Fan Radio exclusive because I'm pretty sure, I can't say this, I can't guarantee that AFR will not be around the next time this happens in 800 years. You never know. You might be. But that, of course, all depends if, the A's are still around, let alone Major League Baseball is still around, if it still involves humans, robots, aliens, combination of both. Who knows what the hell is going to be going on 800 years from now, ladies and gentlemen. But, of course, beginning tonight, a moment and view that humanity and humans across the globe have not witnessed in over 800 years. And, of course, that moment that happens every 800 years is what's referred to as the Christmas star, where basically this is a point in time where once every 800 years, this is the closest that Saturn and Jupiter basically aligning with each other, and because of obviously their size and their brightness, it basically makes what looks like a bright star up there in the sky. Many of you out there, obviously, I'm familiar with the story of why it's called the Christmas star. I'm not going to get too much into details with that. You'll probably end up seeing that if they still play any of them old school stop-motion films from the damn 60s, 70s in regards to that stuff out there. But, yeah, nice sit here, obviously, getting stuff ready before tonight's broadcast. And, no, I did not take that picture that you're looking at on the screen. This is a picture I found online prior to tonight's broadcast. Really didn't get a chance to get a good angle or shot of it with the camera phone I have. Maybe if I had a telescope, it would have been a lot better to do that and could have tried pulling that off. So figured I'd just pull a stock footage off stock photo off the internet just to give you an idea. But yeah, it was nice chilling here, kicking back, doing things before the show and look it up. And hey, there's a Christmas star just chilling there in the sky up above the Coliseum a little bit before, around 5, 6-ish, right before sunset and all that. So definitely going to be a trip. Definitely keep your eyes on that and check it out this week. Snap some photos because, hey, it ain't going to happen again or be that close for another 800 years. So unless you're planning on going into some sort of, deep freeze or freezing yourself in carbonite for the next time that happens 800 years down the road, take advantage of that over the course of the next week. Let's go ahead now and move into the subject that pertains to the first part of the fan question of the night for this edition of the show, and that is obviously statements that were made by Scott Boras when he held a Zoom meeting over the week. And, as we all know, Scott Boras has always been known, regardless how individuals out there feel about him, always knows how to draw attention, stir the pot in whatever room he enters into and is discussing things, regardless if it's been the winter meetings, at various ballparks, interviews over the phone, in studio. And apparently, basically, he even still controls the room, even in Zoom meetings during the crazy shenanigans that's the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, for those of you that didn't know, the winter meetings were held virtually this year because of the pandemic going on. And he basically handed out puns on a platter and talked up his clients. His attitude was chipper. And the 68-year-old clearly loved having his time to shine. When it came to talking about the A's, however, his demeanor wasn't so cheery. And a lot of that is basically Boras has lost trust in owner John Fisher and his group promising a new stadium in Oakland. No matter how much A's President Dave Covell tweets about a supposed future stadium at Howard Terminal, Boras seems to be speaking for the rest of baseball when it comes to skepticism surrounding the A's future. That is something a lot of us are concerned about or is an unknown. Boras said to reporters, I believe this was last Tuesday when this all went down. Just want to double check on that. Yeah, it was last Tuesday. Stuff basically leaking out, being reported about it by some of the media on Wednesday. Some of it did it Tuesday when stuff went down. And obviously, A's have talked about being supposedly cash-strapped. They're in the position to lose 2 premium free agents this offseason in Marcus Semien and Liam Hendriks. And obviously, of course, as we all know, they have 2 star players who are arbitration eligible in Matt Chapman and Matt Olson. And again, franchises claiming it's strapped for cash, and, pandemic-filled shortened season without fans and stands didn't help financially. I mean, it didn't really help financially for many teams around baseball, and a lot of people understand that, but at the same time, as we all know, many of us have felt like that the cash strap excuse has been used by this ownership since day one, since Fisher initially bought the team, had Wolf there, we dealt with all those shenanigans and all that, and probably a lot of that has to do with why Boras probably isn't pushing for a long-term contract between Chapman and the A's anytime soon, because Boras recognizes the A's consistently are able to bring up great players around the same age, but their financial flexibility consistently puts them in a bind. And the problem, as Boras puts it, is the timetable in Oakland. He's quoted as basically explaining the problem with the A's is always the timetable. That is, you bring 4 or 5 really developed players to the major leagues, and they're all there at one time. And all of a sudden, they're at a place where, with only 3 years left in reserve, you have to say, can they meld together a team that gives this group, this class of players it took 7 or 8 years to develop from the draft to now, can they really provide the budget flexibility to give them the depth they need to really be competitive? That's really where the Oakland A's are. Boras in the past, we all know, has shown confidence in the A's and has pushed for some of his bigger clients to even go towards Oakland with, the issues of being cash-strapped, supposedly claiming they are a small market team, even though they play in the 6th biggest media market in the country and the 4th biggest media market in all of baseball. And supposedly there was the idea was flirted around between Bryce Harper and Scott Boras, because Boras is Harper's agent. The two of them apparently at one point flirted the idea of Harper coming out here to play in Oakland, which, might shock people. And he could be just saying that just to talk up things and just add things to this whole situation that he feels is going on with the A's. And basically, will that continue in the future with somebody like a Chapman and players that he's a representative for that are not currently on the Athletics? And it basically really all comes down to the A's stadium promises and getting past false hope. They're a good team, Boras said. Obviously, they win their division. They play well. They have some extraordinary talent. But the question is always the depth, because when you get into the playoffs, you're going to need the bench players to do that. That's where the difficulty has been getting out of the first round of the playoffs, where you can really say you have a competitive roster. It can be done. It can be done, frankly, with the insurgence of a small amount of money, because you do have a core group of players who haven't reached the optimal level of their value in the baseball sense. It's something that requires immediate attention rather than waiting for a stadium to arrive. Immediate attention. And that's something that, hey, the A's need to hear loud and clear, regardless if it's from a Scott Boras, if it's from the dynamic duo here at AsFAnRAdio, those of y'all out there that make up our followers and the A's fan base, and even the rest of baseball. This is clearly how they're feeling. More of them need to speak up and start saying something. And basically, Boras feels that he spoke for the rest of baseball, which is no more promises, no more false hope from players to agents and all the faithful fans in Oakland. We need concrete answers on the A's future and a new stadium, and that time is ticking away. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions and concerns floating around there about pretty much what the status is going on with the new ballpark project, because of the fact that you got the A's claiming that they're cash strapped when it comes to paying players, yet they're paying $85 million over 6 years to the Alameda County for their 50% stake in the Coliseum site. That basically breaks down to about $14-15 million a year over the course of that deal. But obviously, some out there can argue, because many feel that the A's are trying to pull a 2-for-1 deal, and we've all touched base before on how some feel about the whole situation that the A's are trying to do with getting the Coliseum site. Probably there's some out there that are proponents of against the A's developing there, and probably even some out there, even if they support the A's project there, that are probably sitting back and are thinking, I get what y'all are doing, but that 14-15 a mil could easily go to a Chapman, go to an Olsen, be part of something to maybe get Liam or Simeon or both here for a couple of years. It's also been mentioned, on this show several times by us, based on intel that we've gotten over the last year or so from current and former members of the A's front office, that when last checked, the tab for the new ballpark is expected around something like $500 million, and that basically John Fisher apparently was going to be floating the majority to all of the tab of that. So, that's $500 million right there, basically, for the new stadium. $85 million over the span of 6 years paid to the county for the county's half of the Coliseum site. And yet, a guy who's worth $2 to $3 billion, is one of the top 10 owners in baseball, is sitting here claiming to be cash strapped and can't pay his players. I don't blame Boras for popping off. And this is probably one of the first times ever in my life that I actually agree with something that came out of Scott Boras's mouth. I've always kind of felt the guy was, just out there for the money and just, trying to push things to get, just push players to get the maximum, amount of dough, whatever from there, regardless if the interest was a winning team or just, whatever it is. And a lot of people have always felt that way in regards to him. Some, basically you either love the guy or hate the guy. And, me pretty much for most of my life, I've never really been a big fan of this guy. I've been appreciative, obviously, of the few instances where he has stirred a client here, but then obviously, really not so much effort on keeping a client here long-term or trying to get a guy here long-term. But now you kind of understand it, because now you're starting to see a guy like Scott Boras kind of, starting to basically put on blast some of the stuff that myself and Bossman have brought up here on the show. Others have brought out there on social media, conversations that probably some of y'all have had out in the ballparks in regards to this. And, I would not be really truthfully shocked if he potentially is speaking the truth. Again, just from what I follow around out there on social media, what Bossman follows around out there on social media, and from people he talks to, there is a lot of serious concern about the future of the Howard Terminal project. The reality is, and this is just my 2 cents on the matter, the ballpark project should be on the freaking back burner at this point, just given the circumstances of what's still going on with the pandemic right now. You got, basically the equivalent of a 9/11 a day dying at this point. In some instances, almost a 9/11 times 2 a day. We set some huge record for the most, COVID positive tests in the country, I think, yesterday. I forgot the exact number. I'm not even going to throw a number out there because I want to be wrong, but we set some record for the country out there. And just the reality is, a ballpark's going to be the farthest thing from the public's mind too at this point, regardless of it being privately financed or not. But the reality is, I see if they were to try to push this thing going forward, even with privately financed components into it, even if all the various parties, which those being the A's, the Port of Oakland, and the City of Oakland are all being on the same page, I don't think the public would be receptive very well to it right now at this point in time. And I feel that all the parties that have gained all the support that they have gained from this project would as quickly lose it and see it evaporate because of the fact that regardless if it's privately financed or not, you're trying to push a stadium through when there's people out in the city that are, and state in this country, that are dying right now. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean that, yes, obviously some of this stuff needs to be addressed so that way some of the questions and concerns can subside a little bit. My suggestion is, if the reality is the project is really being delayed by COVID-19, might be a smart thing for the A's, the Port of Oakland, and the City of Oakland to release some sort of a joint statement to let everybody know, hey, here's what's going on. Project's delayed by COVID. We want to get this done. Obviously, the bigger priority is making sure this crap is curbed and quelled in the community. And then once everything starts to settle back down, hopefully clearer heads prevail at that point, and we get back to negotiating and working on things. That's what a lot of us would like to see. It would be nice to see something out there because there's been a lot of real quiet. You've seen a few articles pop up here and there talking about obviously COVID potentially adding time on to how long it's going to take this project to happen should a shovel end up hitting the dirt over there. And obviously the way things are looking right now, you may as well put 2023 out the window at this point for opening day. It's probably more realistic for 2024, 2025. But a lot of stuff is going to have to be addressed by not just the A's, but the Port of Oakland and the city as well going forward. But obviously when it comes to the outlook on things in the business side of things that is Major League Baseball, there are definitely a lot of questions and concerns, at least as far as Scott Boras is concerned, being directed about the future and the stability of what's in place as the ownership and leadership of the Oakland Athletics. And really it'll be interesting to see if things continue this way, if we don't see some sort of intervention or, something done by baseball at this point, if what Boras is saying is true and that he's speaking for a lot of, people within the baseball community. It's something that I've thrown out there as a possibility before, something that I mentioned when the whole situation with the A's being cut off for revenue sharing went down a couple years ago. That, initially I took that as, MLB telling the A's, hey, you need to get your act together and start actually investing money into your team, or we might take even more drastic steps. So you kind of start to wonder now, given what Boras is saying, and obviously a lot of this other stuff going on, could we potentially see a direction going where maybe if things don't turn around, Major League Baseball steps in and tries to force Fisher out and put someone in who actually will get things done with the situation in Oakland? Who knows? It'll be very interesting, And, I fully understand, obviously, a lot of people, as usual, understand it, trying to figure out why Dave hasn't tweeted out anything since October. The reality is Dave's not the guy that should be speaking on this right now. Dave's done everything in his power that he can to push this thing going forward. The individual that we need to be hearing from, that needs to be talking, that needs to be addressing the situation, is John Fisher, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, to this point in time, he continues to show a resilience to want to publicly speak and address this situation. And just the reality is if he came out maybe and said something, it may not change our perspective on, the fact that he doesn't want to invest in payroll, the fact that he puts San Jose Earthquakes fans basically with the same crap we go through. Just, something out there, some sort of verbal commitment. Yeah, I'm still throwing my money into the pot for the stadium, da-da-da-da-da, maybe to address the concerns with that. And y'all have heard me also say before as well that I'm not going to be shocked that once that project potentially ends up getting done, if Fisher doesn't eventually cash out after the new ballpark opens. But just the bottom line is, clearly, obviously, we A's fans are not the only ones that are concerned. And again, I know a lot of you out there have your own mixed feelings and thoughts and hot takes about the individual known as Scott Boras. But I hate to say it, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those times where Scott Boras is right. And maybe we might want to pray and hope that he's right, that it ends up having some sort of effect on maybe turning things around for the way things are ran here in Oakland. On that note, hey, just want to remind everybody that there is a fan question of the night for this edition of A's Fan Radio, and that fan question is a two-part fan question. Part one, of course, being we want to hear your thoughts on the very subject that I just discussed for y'all right here, right now, which is your take on what Scott Boras had to say about the Oakland Athletics and the way they're running their ship here in Oakland. And obviously as well, hey, we want to hear your thoughts on any of the other subjects that we're talking on during the course of this show tonight, be it the MLB finally recognizing and elevating the Negro Leagues to MLB status. The next subject I'll be talking about here in a bit that has to do with a MLB team that will be rebranding after the 2021 season. Some of the Cal stuff I'll talk about later on, or just, again, anything. Even if you want to throw in your take on my quick little discussion about looking at the Christmas star. Hey, anything you want to discuss along with your take on what Scott Boras had to say about the way John Fisher and company are running the Oakland Athletics, hey, make your way over to Facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter, and look for the post or tweet that says Fan Question of the Night. Post your response on there, and hey, I will read your response right here on the show at the end of the broadcast. We come back from our next break, ladies and gentlemen. We will be taking a look and getting some more info out there for you all, in case you hadn't been paying attention to it, on what is going down with that Major League team that will be rebranded next year, and some of the ideas that have been floating around out there by baseball fans. Don't go anywhere, folks. Show number 283, the Christmas edition of A's Fan Radio, will be right back at you in a bit.
Ho, 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 ho. We are Santa's elves. We are Santa's elves. Filling Santa's shelves with a toy for each girl and boy. Oh, we are Santa's elves. We work hard all day.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's, as I mentioned to y'all coming out of the previous break, with not having my second mom around, given the unfortunate circumstances that happened in July, it definitely is going to be a blue Christmas for yours truly here and many of our family. But, hey, we're pushing through, dealing with it as best as we can. Know many of you out there as well as probably people you know out there have had it a little bit tough, and a little bit tough might be an understatement, given the crazy circumstances and shenanigans that have been 2020 and the coronavirus pandemic. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is show number 283, the Christmas edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, A's Fan Radio. The legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown coming at you solo for this edition of the broadcast, as, of course, my main man, the boss man, the other half of what's become known as the dynamic duo, has the evening off because tonight also happens to be his 38th birthday. So, again, happy 38th birthday to you, boss. Hopefully you aren't too thrashed by this point in time, though, given the fact that we're creeping up on the 9 o'clock hour and it is his birthday, who knows what he has, all sorts of assortments of things probably over there in the boss liquor cabinet over there at the boss pad in Alameda. Let's go ahead now and touch bases on the last bit of Major League Baseball-related news that we'll be discussing on tonight's broadcast. Again, hey, that's what basically happens when you're in an off-season where not a lot of free agent moves are going on because teams being concerned about what things are going to look like financially heading in to the 2020 season. Obviously, there has been some talk, and it was put out there that the owners are looking at wanting to start the season late again, not something as drastic as the 60-game season last year, but probably delay the season until roughly about May, have spring training go down in April because they were trying to explore potentially getting all the players vaccinated. Players are kind of putting up a fuss, want to do the full normal 162-game schedule this go-around and try to have the normal spring training games. A lot of managers out there are trying to approach things as if business is going to be normal and they'll be reporting the spring training in February. But who knows what's going to happen, man. It'll be definitely interesting again to see what happens this go-around like it was. Last year they were able to get some of spring training in, and then it got canked in basically the 15th, 16th of March. With them playing only 60 games. So they're expecting nothing drastic, but again, it's going to be real interesting to see what they do as far as negotiating things for this year and also for the long term as well, because you got to remember you got an upcoming expiring CBA on tap with the potential of strike lockout happening in 2022. So, a lot of stuff that's going to have to be addressed. One of the things that we know for sure, though, that will be happening in 2021, regardless how many games are played, the Cleveland Indians will be using the Indian name for the last time ever in their franchise history in 2021. And that is because after several months of discussion sparked by the death of George Floyd and national reckoning over race and colonism, the Cleveland Indians have decided to change their name. Team owner Paul Dolan confirmed the decision back on roughly around December the 14th, following a process that involved conversations with fans, players, local and national Native American groups, Cleveland civic leaders, corporate sponsors, and leading Native American researchers. The decision follows a similar move by the NFL's Washington football team, formerly known as the Redskins. Unlike the Washington football team, however, Cleveland's baseball team will continue to be known as the Indians, the name it has carried since 1915, until a new name is chosen and various branding and trademark issues are resolved. The earliest a new name can be used is 2022, but the team has not set a firm date. Dolan did not confirm any of the replacement names or concepts being discussed internally, but he did make it clear that the team will not make its informal nickname, the Tribe, its new nickname. Native American groups and others have long protested the use of indigenous names and symbols by professional and amateur sports teams. Cleveland removed the contiguous Chief Wahoo logo from its caps and jerseys prior to the 2019 season. The team still owns the rights to that logo and has continued to sell merchandise bearing the logo. Dolan said that as part of the conversation about the nickname, the team has decided to donate all profits from the sale of Chief Wahoo merchandise to causes that support the Native American community. In July, shortly after Washington's decision to change its name was revealed, Dolan released a statement that Cleveland would review the best path forward with our team name. Prior to that statement, Dolan's public stance at the time of the Chief Wahoo's decision was that the team name itself did not need to be addressed, but the events of 2020 compelled Dolan and the organization at large to evaluate. Here is the full statement, by the way, that was released by the Cleveland Indians. The Cleveland Indians announced our decision to begin the process of changing from our team name Indians. Since July, we have conducted an extensive process to learn how our team name affected different constituencies. Sorry there, y'all. I get tongue twisted. And whether it aligned with our organizational values. As a result of that process, we have decided to move forward with changing the current team name and determine a new non-Native American base name for the franchise. We believe our organization is at best when we can unify our community and bring people together, and we believe a new name will allow us to do this more fully. Team owner and chairman Paul DeLone said, "Hearing firsthand the stories and experiences of Native American people, we gain a deep understanding of how tribal communities feel about the team name and the detrimental effects it has on them. We also spoke to local civic leaders who represent diverse populations in our city and who highlighted the negative impact our team name has had on our broader population and on underrepresented groups across our community. I am truly grateful for their engagement and input, which I found enlightening and insightful. When a sports team is aligned with its community, it unlocks the ability to unite people from different backgrounds and bring people together in support of their home team. While Indians will always be a part of our history, it is time to move forward and work to unify our stakeholders and fans through a new name." So obviously, no official word about what name is going to be used by them. Obviously, probably one of the front runners out there from the logo y'all see out there on there is the name of the original MLB team that played in the city of Cleveland, which was the Cleveland Spiders. They were a National League team that existed from roughly, I want to say, basically the end of 1800 till almost basically the turn of the century at the end of the 1890s, turn of the 1900s, basically, at that point in time. Some individuals out there making a fuss against them becoming the Cleveland Spiders because of the fact that the Spiders were kind of basically a joke franchise for the majority of their existence. But, kind of understanding the direction of wanting to go with that. Definitely would be nice and catchy if they went with something like that as their logo right there, what you're looking at on your screens right now. Some of the other ones being thrown out there is obviously you got a few knuckleheads that are suggesting them being called the Cleveland Steamers. Another one that's floating around is Cleveland Rocks. Cleveland Rocks. Obviously, because the way I'm saying it, you kind of allude to what's going on with that. Cleveland Guardians is another one I've heard thrown around out there. Probably a whole bunch of other ones out there that I can't think of off the top of my head or I haven't noticed. My personal choice, obviously, I'm going to go with what it seems like the majority of the baseball world is going with, and go ahead and rebrand yourselves as the Cleveland Spiders. There's actually some pretty interesting fan-made concepts for Cleveland Spider uniforms out there, which are either kind of, semi-based off of what the Indians have right now, and there's even some original takes going on there. So just, go on Google, type in Cleveland Spiders jersey concept art, and have your mind just taken away by what you're seeing in regards to that. Just want to see if I can pull up any more information on here. A little more info as well. Locally, the American Indian Movement of Ohio, the Lake Erie Professional Chapter of the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, the Committee of 500 Years of Dignity and Resistance, and the Lake Erie Native American Council publicly advocated for a name change. Dolan said civic leaders who cater to the underserved were equally as strong in their support of a name change. A fifth-generation Clevelander, Dolan said he understands that many of the fans do not agree with the team's decision. I hope that those that do not agree with the decision take the time, like we did, to better understand the issue and think about a role a sports team plays in the community and whether we can play that role with a name like the Indians. Dolan said that the team will continue to celebrate its long history as the Indians after a new name is installed. The team will continue to engage with the community during the selection process for a new name, which he acknowledged as difficult and complex. The process of moving away from Indians is not going to be easy, Dolan said. We understand it's going to be difficult for a lot of people to make that adjustment, but I hope over time we embrace the process of reimagining our name. Hopefully it will be a name the community can rally around, and I hope it has more than a 105-year life to it. Dolan, go with the Cleveland Spiders. Just easiest thing to do right there. A lot of people already love it, or a lot of people are already familiar with it. Hey, again, just my 2 cents. And again, similar situation in regards to like the whole situation with the MLB finally elevating the Negro Leagues to Major League status. This is another situation that, again, is long overdue. Now, of course, you're going to have your individuals out there who are going to say that, there are a few members of the Native American community out there who aren't offended by this, aren't bothered by that. You're going to have the others out there, they're going to argue, you've been called that for 105 years, why are you going to change it? I've even seen, the weakest argument I've seen in favor of keeping it is, changing their name means you're changing their history. No, the hell you're not changing their history. A changing of a name does not mean you're changing history. They basically hit it right there. They're still going to recognize that there is a 105-year period where we did have Indians tied to our name. They're also obviously finally acknowledging the fact that, hey, maybe that was 105 years too long that we were using that name. You got the old story going that supposedly the team's moniker, its nickname, its mascot derives from the first Major League Native American baseball player who played his first 3 years in the league during the last 3 years that the Cleveland Spiders were in existence. And, some even use that as an argument for a reason why to keep the name in place. And just bottom line is, look, I don't give a damn what your argument is in favor of wanting to keep this. The majority of the Native American population in this country does not like it, has not liked it for more than years, more than decades, generations. Native Americans have been making a fuss about this since teams started doing this. And again, just like with the whole elevation of the Negro Leagues to Major League status, this is a situation that is long overdue. And it's obviously not going to be the last situation where you see groups like this try to fight to get team names changed. Obviously you still got the Braves out there. You still have the Chiefs there in Kansas City. People talk about that, Kansas City's going to put up a fight and we'll never change that. Hey, we'll see. Many people never thought that this was going to happen in Cleveland, and people never thought that Negro Leagues were going to get elevated to Major League Baseball status either. And hey, all this stuff's slowly happening because the fact that slow process, process that shouldn't be taking this slow to happen, but people are finally starting to realize the wrongs that we have committed, and just starting to finally realize that we cannot continue to sit here and sports team. Or whatever the business enterprise is, you cannot continue to sit here and make money off of a product that is oppressing people, is offensive to a group of people. What's another argument I heard out there that was one of the weak reasons about this? That somebody out there commented on our Facebook page when we first started posting info out about this, that if the Indians are going to change their name, the Irish of Notre Dame should change their name because da-da-da-da-da. I don't even remember what his argument was in favor of why the Irish should change their name. First of all, one, that has nothing to do with anything in regards to this matter. Two, the Irish were not, let's see here, the Irish were not like the Native Americans, had their land stolen from them, had their populace damn near eradicated and murdered, and also did not have what was left of their population marched hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles across the continent because a bunch of white people wanted to snatch up and make money off of their land. Again, I'm sorry. I don't care what your argument is in favor of the Indians or any of these other professional college amateur teams out there keeping Native American names as their mascots. Your argument in favor of it is muted by the fact that the majority of Native Americans don't like it. Pure and simple, end of day, end of line, end of conversation. It is what it is. And you obviously, it's going to be real interesting to see how this impacts things. And definitely at some point, next time we have Dave Covell on the show, given the fact that Dave's from Cleveland himself, definitely I'm going to want to get to hear Dave's take on this, being a Cleveland sports fan himself, just to get a little insight from somebody that's in that area and, an individual that might have a little bit of insight of some of the stuff that's happened over the years with the talks of this going on. Because, again, this is something that's been going on not just, in the recent past, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that's been going on for decades that they've been trying to do out here. So big props to those that run what is currently the Cleveland Indians organization, and really hope that they do pick it, continue to engage the community, get input from everybody on there, and take their thought and their process into everything in regards to what's it goes as far as picking the name. And again, hey, just going to throw it out there, click on it again. That's my choice. That seems to be what the majority of baseball fans out there like. Seems to be the front runner there, and it would be my pick if I were a Cleveland fan, because again, it's honoring the past there for the Cleveland franchise. So again, just props to Cleveland. About damn time you all changed the name. And again, if you don't like it, too damn bad. You're in the minority. Your point and argument for why it should be kept is mute. Because again, it's oppressive. It's oppressive and it's offensive to Native Americans, people. And it's time that some of you out there finally comprehend and understand that and start doing better research on some of the shit that went down in this country, and understand why Native Americans feel the way they do in regards to stuff like the Cleveland Indians, the team formerly known as the Washington Redskins, and all these various other teams out there that got to it's got to go when it comes to this stuff with Native American mascots. Anyway, real quickly, before we take our next break of the night here on the show, just want to touch bases on some of the roster moves that have went down since the last time we came at you here on the show. I believe our last broadcast was, December 10th? Yep. Pretty much nothing else really, except for 3 moves. 2 of those moves you probably already know about, and those, of course, were the Rule 5 draft picks that the Oakland Athletics made on the day of their last show, which we already touched bases on, so there's no need to go over that again. So really the only move that went down was a minor league signing. Is back on December the 14th, the Oakland Athletics signed free agent left-handed pitcher Reman Guduan, Guduan, to a minor league contract. So Yep, that pretty much seems to be the story so far of this offseason for your A's. Hey, whole bunch of signing of minor league guys and minor league guys being invited to spring training. But, yeah, where is the effort to try to go after Simeon, go after bringing Liam back? You've obviously heard Forrest mentioning that he's been in constant contact with Tommy LaStella's agent. Yeah, that's great and all to hear, but, talk is cheap. That's just the cold hard truth about it, especially when you're sitting here and you're an Oakland Athletics fan and you've had to deal with, the talks of, oh, we're talking to this guy, or we're going to, we're trying to talk, we dealt with stuff with Tejada, Giambi, and, too many names that I don't want to bring up. It's just a situation that we've been at before because of the fact that, we're cash strapped, even though we got an owner that's worth $2 to $3 billion. And the reality is, if you're cash strapped, dude, get some more investors and it can throw some more money into the pot. Or, yeah, I don't want to get too sidetracked and off track without that. I'll know my thoughts on that. So, yeah, not much really to report about as far as signings. Again, just really minor league guys at this point, and I'm wondering if that's the case around Major League Baseball as a whole right now. Because, again, as mentioned, there's really only been 3 or 4 significant Major League signings that have gone on out there. And just, again, craziness and uncertainty that's 2020 heading into 2021 with COVID still running amok. Real quickly, want to remind everybody once again that if you have not had the chance to do so yet, be sure to make your way over to either facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or our Twitter page at A's_fan_radio. And hey, throw down, post, tweet back at us your response to the fan question of the night for this edition of AFR. The fan question for this edition of the show being, hey, we want to hear your thoughts on what Scott Boras had to say last week about things with the Oakland Athletics and their ongoing claims of being cash-strapped, and also your thoughts on anything else that we happen to be covering here on tonight's edition of the show. We come back from our next break, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Cpl Oaktown movie and show review. I will be reviewing Season 2 of The Mandalorian, and also will be taking a look at what's on tap for the future of the Star Wars franchise. Don't go anywhere, folks. Show number 283, the Christmas edition of A's Fan Radio, will be coming right back at you in a bit.
Out of all the reindeers, you know you're the mastermind. Run, Rudolph. Randolph ain't too far behind. Run, Rudolph. Santa's gotta make it to town. He's Mr. White Christmas. He's Mr.
Hey, I had to do that one for my auntie, y'all. Year Without a Santa Claus was one of my aunt's favorite, one of those stop-motion Christmas cartoons, animatics, whatever the hell you want to call it, what would have called it, that we, of course, many of us grew up with, and our parents and grandparents grew up and showed each other during the course of the 60s and the 70s, and it just was always funny how every year just that was the one song amongst all the other songs that always broke out. So I had to definitely make sure that for my auntie, I threw that one out there. So, yeah, the Snow Miser version of the Miser song going out, of course, to my late Aunt Diana. Those of you out there, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to show number 283. It's the Christmas edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, A's Fan Radio. The League 5150 Cpl Oaktown coming at you solo for this edition of AFR. Bossman has the night off tonight for his 38th birthday. Let's go ahead and continue on down the road here with stuff on the show, of course, as we will now take a look in at, hey, those of you, of course, out there, like many of you with what's been going on out there, probably binge watching a lot more shows and programs on TV through streaming apps than you would normally be doing back in the old normal pre-days before the dark times, before the COVID. One of those shows, obviously, I'm pretty sure that many of you out there were streaming. Definitely pretty sure that you Star Wars fans out there were checking out and streaming, of course, was Season 2 of The Mandalorian, which basically pretty much right from the word jump was, pretty much action-packed. Every single episode. this year. There were times you would wonder, like, man, are they gonna, are they ever gonna take their foot off the gas? Are we gonna end up losing interest? Are there gonna be any dead episodes? And for the most part, really, no. Every week you got hit with some gut-punching stuff, some great, tidbits and new stuff out there. Obviously, one of the biggest things that many of us out there have been waiting to see finally happened in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. A couple things, actually, that many of us longtime Star Wars fans wanted to see finally happening in the series. One of those, of course, being that during Season 2, we finally got to see the long-awaited live-action debut of Ahsoka Tano, who, of course, those of you that obviously are probably familiar with things, but if you're not, Ahsoka, of course, was the Padawan apprentice of Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, ended up leaving the Jedi Order after she was falsely accused of bombing the Jedi Temple, was basically put on trial, accused by everybody but her master of being the one that bombed the temple, was later proven that she was not the one that did it. She was offered a chance to get back in the Order, decided not to because she felt betrayed by everybody but Anakin. Basically went off, made her own niche, ultimately met back up with all of them, tried to help out Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians with overthrowing Maul from Mandalore. After the Clone Wars, goes on to serve as a member of the early cells of the Rebel Alliance. And basically, this point in time right now, many of us suspect that she's probably out there still trying to find Ezra with Sabine, for those of you, of course, that followed Rebels. Another Clone Wars character who we got to see brought to life this year in Season 2 of The Mandalorian was Bo-Katan Kryze, who, of course, was the sister of Duchess Satine, ruler of Mandalore during the Clone Wars. Bo-Katan fought to basically get control of Mandalore back from Darth Maul, held the Darksaber at one point, ultimately at some point in time lost it to Moff Gideon, and basically has been on the warpath to reclaim the Darksaber from Moff Gideon as part of her way to help reestablish rule of Mandalore under her rule and unite all of Mandalore to basically go back to the planet, even though many feel that basically is it really worth going back to that planet. Many feel that Mandalore's basically been cursed since the Empire left it. And, of course, one of the biggest things that many of us in the Star Wars world had always suspected of having taken place and thought was going to happen was considered to be part of the canon years ago, back before Disney owned things in the old expanded universe, but obviously when Disney bought the rights to Lucasfilm and Star Wars, damn near basically everything from the EU was kicked out of the canon. We've seen them bring bits and pieces back from the expanded universe, Grand Admiral Thrawn being an example, and an individual is actually referenced by Ahsoka Tano in the episode. And real quickly, before I forget, shout out to Rosaria Dawson for just, nailing it as Ahsoka, and proving why a decade ago I said that she should be the live-action version of Ahsoka Tano. Anyway, before I get too far ahead of myself, that one instance, that one individual that many of us suspected for a long time was still alive, had not died. That was finally proven to us over the course of several episodes in the season. It was hinted at early on in episode 1 of the first season that, or at the tail end of episode 1 of season 2, that Boba Fett was still alive, had survived his encounter with the Sarlacc pit 5 years prior in Return of the Jedi. Still waiting to see, obviously, how things address how he ended up losing his armor and how Cobb Vanth ends up with it basically over there in Mos Polgos and all that. Fett basically tracks down Mando and the child, who, by the way, we all learn in this season, actually has his name. His name's Grogu, which is, kind of crazy. These damn, Yoda species characters having these weird names. Yoda, Yaddle, Grogu, who knows? And apparently Grogu survived the Purge, a.k.a. Order 66, and was at the temple around the time of the Purge. So, again, typical Star Wars plot holes. You're always going to wonder, how do you get out of the temple? Maybe that's addressed at some point. And obviously, as well, same situation with, Boba Fett. We kind of have ideas of various ways that he survived based off of the extended universe. Going to be real interesting to see if they address matters with how he survives in everything that's considered to be canon now. And I'll get a little bit more into that here in a bit. Basically, pretty much, again, the same old things. Again, great season. Was nonstop action from stop to go. Really, I would say if there was an episode in season 2 that kind of did feel a little bit lacking and kind of like it kind of hit the brakes, was probably episode 2, the whole situation with the frog lady character, and probably some of you out there that have arachnophobia issues are probably bothered by the crab-like, snail-like, spider-like things that some of you are probably familiar with from the Secrets of Chopper Base and the several episodes in the Rebel series that took place at that secret base that the Rebels cell that the Ghost Crew was a part of, that they established had similar creatures like there, But really, outside of that episode, was a great season and proven really for me and proven for a lot of people out there that kind of have felt like, Disney might be going in the wrong direction with the franchise, that finally feel like things are back on track. And many out there basically praising what Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have done with this. And, I'm definitely in that camp that's saying that those two should probably be the ones that have the go-ahead and the main say and call the shots on what happens with Star Wars going forward. And definitely was also great as well in the final, season finale, just to see that great battle shootout on that light cruiser. Basically see Mando go one-on-one with Moff Gideon, and then just that great appearance and just, there by Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker at the end, man, was just, crazy and intense. And just, hey, it's going to be real interesting to see where things go when Season 3 drops next year. So definitely check it out. Sorry if I spoiled it, y'all, but hey, it's been basically 3 days since it dropped. And, I try more often than not to do spoiler reviews, but hey, I decided, it's been long enough in this series that, hey, with how hot it is and, given the fact that it's only $6-7 to buy Disney Plus per month, no excuse for you to have not seen it at that point. Speaking of which, the future is bright, I guess you can say, for the Star Wars franchises. Several projects have recently been announced on tap going forward for the franchise. Just a little bit tidbit. There's one film, and at the time of the announcement, it was 9 series, that it's now gone up to 10 series since the announcement's made. That one film being Rogue Squadron, which will be directed by Patty Jenkins, and the story will introduce a new generation of starfighter pilots as they earn their wings and risk their lives in a boundary-pushing, high-speed thrill ride and move the saga into the future era of the galaxy. Lock S foils and attack positions. Rogue Squadron arrives in theaters Christmas 2023. There's also an untitled Tanaki Watati film, a brand new Star Wars feature with acclaimed filmmaker and Academy Award winner Taiki Waititi is in development. Taki's approach to Star Wars will be fresh, unexpected, and unique. His enormous talent and sense of humor will ensure that audiences are in for an unforgettable ride. That's, of course, coming from Kathleen Kennedy. Probably one of the most anticipated shows from this upcoming batch is obviously the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which, of course, we will get to see Ewan McGregor reprise the role of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's also been, of course, confirmed recently that Hayden Christensen will return as Darth Vader. Many out there concerned about the possibility of us getting a Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader match in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, because the fact that it was hinted at, or it seemed like that didn't happen. But, hey, you never know. We'll see what happens. My opinion is it should be just limited to the two of them talking smack to each other through the Force, but we will see what happens. One of the other series that I'm personally looking forward to, just because of, big fan of the character I am, is the Ahsoka series, which, of course, after making her long-awaited live-action debut in The Mandalorian, Ahsoka Tano's story, written by Dave Filoni, will continue in a limited series starring Rosario Dawson and executive produced by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. That series, of course, is one of 3 series from this new batch that's coming out that are actually basically spin-offs of The Mandalorian. That other one, of course, being Rangers of the New Republic. And that, of course, just like the Ahsoka film, will be set within the timeline of The Mandalorian, and that series will also be brought to everyone by executive producers John Farrow and Dave Filoni, and of course they will intersect with future stories and accumulate into a climatic story event. Another one that I'm pretty sure everyone's looking forward to, everyone's favorite scoundrel Lando Calrissian will return in a new event series from Disney+. Justin Simien, creator of the critically acclaimed Dear White People and a huge Star Wars fan, is developing the story. You also, of course, have the Andor series going on, which basically is serving as a prequel to Rogue One. They just recently started filming that, and that's set to arrive on Disney Plus in 2022. Another series coming out as well that basically is set around the time of the High Republic era is a series called The Acolyte, which will basically focus on and be a mystery thriller that will take the audience into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic. You also have The Bad Batch, which will basically follow the elite and experimental clones of the Bad Batch, which were first introduced in the the series finale of the final season of the Clone Wars. As they find their way in a rapidly changing galaxy in the immediate aftermath of the Clone Wars, members of the Bad Batch, a unique squad of clones who vary genetically from their brothers in the Clone Army, each possess a singular expeditional skill which makes them extraordinarily effective soldiers and a formidable crew. In the post-Clone War era, they will take on daring mercenary missions as they struggle to stay afloat and find new purpose. And that animated series, of course, will air on Disney Plus next year. There will also be a kind of basically, I guess you can say, a Japanese anime take on the series in a series called Star Wars Visions, which will present an all-new creative take on the galaxy far, far away. It will be a series of animated short films celebrating Star Wars through the lens of the world's best anime creators. There's also a project called A Droid Story that Lucasfilm will be putting out there. Lucasfilm Animation will be teaming up with Lucasfilm's visual effects team, Industrial Light and Magic, to develop a special Star Wars adventure for Disney Plus called A Droid Story. This epic journey will introduce us to a new hero guided by the legendary duo of R2-D2 and C-3PO. And the series, of course, that was not announced initially when all these other projects were put forth to the public at the Disney Investors Meeting. The news, of course, of that other series dropping in the post-credit scene of the series finale of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there was talks about it for years, talks about a movie. Then that got shelved. Talks about a series. Nobody knew what ultimately happened. And I think ultimately, as of course we saw, because of how the character was recepted and welcomed back into things with The Mandalorian, we'll also be getting simultaneously at the same time as Season 3 of The Mandalorian next year, unless, of course, COVID holds that up, we'll be also getting the Book of Boba Fett. So, yeah, lots of stuff on tap for Lucasfilm and the Star Wars franchise going forward. Some of the other non-Star Wars products that are on tap for Lucasfilm, just in case if any of you are wanting to know or have been keeping tabs on things or have been loosely keeping tabs on things. As we all know, of course, there will be another installment in the Indiana Jones franchise. At the helm of that, of course, is James Mangold, the director of the Academy Award-winning Ford vs. Ferrari. And, of course, Indy himself, Harrison Ford, will be back to continue his ironic character's journey. Indy will begin shooting late in the spring of next year and will arrive in theaters in July 2020. And pretty sure some of y'all remember the movie Willow that came out back in the 80s. Well, they, of course, will finally be making a series that will air on Disney Plus and will be set decades after Ron Howard's 1988 movie, continuing the spirited adventure, heroics, and humor of the original film. Warwick Davis will return in the role of the great sorcerer Willow Ufgood, with John Chu, director of the groundbreaking Crazy Rich Asians, directing the pilot. Willow will begin shooting next March in Wales and will debut on Disney Plus in 2022. Man, just a lot of stuff going forward with Lucasfilm, Star Wars, and some of these other projects going on there. So, hey, crazy time, great time to be a fan of that franchise and Lucasfilm. Definitely be interesting to see how a fifth Indiana Jones plays out, though. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I'm definitely looking forward to, obviously, what's going to be going down with Star Wars going forward. In case you're wondering, the three series that I'm looking forward to the most are the Ahsoka series, the Obi-Wan series, and most likely I will say the Lando series. And I'm actually hoping the Lando series is animated so that way animated Billy D. Williams can make the panties drop like he's always been known to do. And my honorable mentions will obviously be The Bad Batch and the Andor series, but definitely be interesting to check out all these things as they come on. And, of course, obviously you'll have Season 3 of The Mandalorian mixed in with that, and also will be interesting to see how far that story continues to develop and what direction they go with that after the events that went down in Season 2. That wraps up things here for this edition of the Cpl Oaktown movie and show review, which also means, hey, we're getting ready to head into our final break of the evening here on AsFANRAdio. When we come back, we will go ahead and take a look at what Cal football's been up to, or the lack of what they've been up to, I guess you could say, as we check in on the AFR segment edition of the Bear Raid. And then we'll get set to, besides obviously get on out of here with my final thoughts of the night, I will also, of course, read your responses to the fan question of the night. So, hey, if you haven't done so yet, this is basically your last chance between now and when I wrap up the Bear Raid to submit your responses if you haven't yet done so. Head on over to Facebook.com/AsFANRadio or at A's_fan_radio on Twitter and submit your responses to the fan question of the night so that way I can read them off here online during the show at the end of the broadcast. The fan question for tonight, it was a two-part question. We want to hear your thoughts on what Scott Boras had to say about the A's cash strapping excuses last week. And we also are open as well to hearing your thoughts on anything else we have discussed on this evening's broadcast. Final break coming your way here on the Christmas edition of AsFANRAdio, coming at you from the new Dub 6 Studios in the Eastmont Hills of the deep east of Oakland, California.
So this is Christmas, and what have you done? Another year over, and a new one just begun.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we get set to wrap things up here on this Christmas edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland athletics. Welcome back to show number 283, the Christmas edition of AsFANRAdio, the legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown, coming at you solo for this edition of AFR. In case you haven't missed out on me mentioning it during the other breaks at this point, hey, obviously, Boss ain't here. Because, for those of you that were wondering, he ain't here. If you missed out and you're just tuning in now, hey, it's his 38th birthday today, so it's kind of understandable that the big guy would have the night off. So, again, shout-outs to my main man. Happy 38th birthday to you. Hopefully you aren't too thrashed at this point in time. But, hey, it's your birthday, just as long as you obviously ain't going out and doing anything and causing a ruckus, which pretty sure he ain't going to be, given how well he's been following things with this pandemic and just the way my man carries himself. Pretty much doubt he's going to be out doing anything. But again, happy birthday to you, boss. Just stay safe and don't do anything dumb that's going to get you into a deep kempshi with the boss lady. On that note, let's go ahead and head on into the segment edition of something that, of course, obviously you already know is its own standalone show as well. And the funny thing is, this is actually the second show I've done in back-to-back days. I, of course, did the my other podcast, my side project, which kind of basically got its start from this segment that's going to be coming up here at you right now. So definitely, of course, for you A's fans or Cal fans that want to see and hear a little bit more in-depth talk when it comes to the Cal athletics, be sure, of course, to check out the standalone podcast version of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. This, of course, obviously is the segment version of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill, which means there's not going to be as much in-depth talk as we would go into if this were the standalone show. But things will be a little bit longer than normal on this segment edition of the show, given that we obviously have 2 weeks' worth of stuff to touch basis on. So let's go ahead and touch in and find out what Cal football has been up to, or more so to put it, the lack of what they have been up to since the last time we came at you here for an edition of AsFANRAdio. Cal, of course, after beating Oregon in their previous home matchup on December the 5th, was slated to get ready to head up to up to where were they heading to? Getting track of stuff. Heading up to Washington to battle it out with Washington State for what was supposed to be the final road game for your California Golden Bears in 2020. Well, that ended up not happening as the Pac-12, after basically looking at here at the statement here on your screen, I'm not going to sit here and reread it again like I ended up doing during the Bear rating. You all can just sit there and do that. As they basically made the decision on the day of the game, based off of a test that was administered prior to the game. I think basically, if I remember, the Bears flew up there, everything was set, they all got situated in there, were ready to roll, and then basically an hour before kickoff, the news coming down that a member of the Cal squad had tested positive for COVID-19, and that basically due to contact tracing and individuals that he was around, that ended up putting Cal under the minimum required number of student athletes to suit up and play for the game. So the California-Washington State game ended up not happening because of a COVID-19 protocol. That of course, meant that, basically the team was going to be off, and that brought into question what would end up happening the following week. Obviously, this having no bearing on affecting things with, anything with the Pac-12 championship. I mean, come on, given the fact that Cal already won one game at this point, you really think that there was a chance of them playing in the Pac-12 championship? Nah, not going to happen. And basically, pretty much what it was decided is basically the top teams would play each other in the Pac-12 championship, and then everybody else in the conference would play a regular conference schedule the weekend of the Pac-12 championship. Cal originally was slated for that schedule of games to end the season at home on the 19th against the Arizona Wildcats, but that game ended up not happening either. It's basically hangover from the COVID test that happened in with the Washington State game factored into this one. Is pretty much because of that and the contact tracing. Cal, for the December the 19th game, just like it would have been with that game on the 12th against the Washington State Cougars, would not be able to have the minimum number of student athletes to suit up for the game, and it was pretty much the same case for the Arizona Wildcats as well. And as a result of both teams not having enough players to suit up for the game, that game ended up being canceled as well. So, ended up being a short season for your California Golden Bears football program as they end the year 1-3 and basically end out the season with 2 canked games because of COVID. Head coach Justin Wilcox issued the following statement on December the 13th, or actually it was either December the 13th or the 14th, either the day or the day after it was announced that the last game of the year would be canceled. Wilcox was quoted as saying, "Our hearts go out to all the student athletes who put in so much preparation and time to play the game they love. We are disappointed that we were not able to host Arizona and also not able to play against Washington State. We are disappointed that we are, I'm kind of getting a little backtracked there, my bad. Sorry about that. But I am proud of our team and what we have been able to accomplish under difficult and unprecedented circumstances this season. Providing a safe environment has been at the top of our priority list throughout the season, and I'd like to thank everyone who helped us put together a plan to practice and play within the health guidelines. I'd also like to recognize our seniors for their hard work, dedication, and leadership throughout their Cal careers. They truly are a special group of student athletes who have been helpful, who have helped build our program. We have a bright future ahead of us, and we are looking forward to preparing for 2021. So, very frustrating year if you're a member of the Cal football program. Pretty obviously, it's a frustrating year if you're a fan of the program as well, because, it was a season where we were expected originally prior to COVID to have been ranked 23rd in the nation based on some of the recruitment moves we made, some of the performances last season, and ended up being all for naught, as you ended up basically having 3 or 4 games canceled because of COVID, had a game switched out at the last minute because your opponent couldn't play because of COVID and basically didn't have enough time to prep for that opponent. Just really a disaster of a season for your California Golden Bears that many of us out there had higher hopes and expectations for, and just sits there, makes you wonder, would there have been much of a difference had the Pac-12 actually started in September instead of waiting until November to start. Some people are, thrown out there wondering maybe that they should have started, if they were going to start late, should have started that Halloween weekend instead. Just a lot of questions and concerns about the way that this was all handled during the course of the season, and, just very frustrating for not just the Golden Bears, but, a lot of the other teams around the Pac-12. I mean, obviously you did have teams that were able to get in a decent amount to almost a full amount of games this year, but there were a lot of teams that, you had a couple teams. I want to say ASU only got like 2 or 3 games in this whole entire 2020 Pac-12 football season because of COVID issues. So you had teams that either, didn't get as many games in, or even if they did get a decent amount of games in, were affected by not having players there. And just, a year with, just COVID being a factor. Obviously, those couple games where special teams did Cal in when they were playing against Oregon State, and then the following week against Stanford. Some extent, many feel a little bit of a regression by Chase Garbers. Just a season that, again, so many higher hopes were pinned on. Just ended up kind of being, to some extent, a shortened version of the same old Cal Bears. And really hope that, obviously, things are better going next year and they're able to do a better job and play better. But just, again, just like with a lot of the question marks lingering forward with if baseball is going to start on time and if they're going to have a shortened season, as badly as many of us out there would love to see business as normal go down when September 4th, 2021 rolls around, because that's when Cal's supposed to kick off 2021 at home against Nevada. Who knows if it's going to be like that? Who knows if they're going to have, somewhat normal capacity up there, limited capacity, even if they have limited capacity in the stadium, where they can allow people to go up to the hill in limited capacity. A lot of questions that are going to need to be answered going forward, not just about how stuff's going to handle with that, but how obviously things with the pandemic are going to affect that stuff and affect the program and what happens with things going forward. But definitely, obviously, some hope on the horizon for your California Golden Bears as you're looking at right there the group known as Cal Gang 21. That's the incoming freshman class for the Cal football program. Definitely, basically, I think there's 8 4-star recruits that are amongst this group here. So definitely some high expectations will be riding on some of these guys to help turn the Golden Bear program around. And out of this group of individuals right here, the one I will tell y'all that you should definitely probably keep your eyes on is Kia Milnar. He's that individual that's right there in the middle of your screen. He's a quarterback that those of you out there, of course, that follow my co-host, the Boss Man, on social media. Boss put up a post, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks back, where Milnar basically in a high school game that he had recently played and basically threw this ridiculous behind-the-back pass that ended up being caught for a touchdown. And just, people are raving about this kid. And, maybe some of the individuals out there, and I know Boss Man's one of them. Boss is one of those guys that really has never been high on Chase Garbers. Maybe this is a guy that those people out there that aren't so high on Chase feel could potentially give Chase a run for his money and even supersede Chase Garbers as a starting quarterback. My Bear Raid co-host, Donnie Knucklehead Hudson, feels, though, that people are just hating on Chase and that Chase has more potential there and has a lot better that he can do and just was limited by what went down with the way the season played out and all the COVID stuff and just was affected by everything like the way everybody else was on the team. But, it will be interesting to see if Milner gives Chase a run for his money in Chase's senior year, if he takes over, or if Chase is able to hold the fort down for his final year and basically helps groom this kid to basically take over things. I feel that Milner's going to be probably the starter going forward, probably not next year, but, who knows? A lot of stuff can happen basically between now and next year. So definitely going to be interesting to see how him and the other members of Cal Gang 21 factor into things with Cal football going forward. Finally, to wrap things up with this segment edition of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill, we will, for the last time, take a look at what the final Pac-12 standings were in the Pac-12 conference as far as football goes. We'll start off, of course, first in the Pac-12 North because that's where the California Golden Bears reside at in the conference. The Washington Huskies finished off on top with a record of 3-1. The Stanford Cardinal finished second with a record of 4-2. The Oregon Ducks finished at 3-2 and finished off with a 25th national ranking. The Oregon State Beavers finished off at 2-4, and your California Golden Bears and the Washington State Cougars finished sharing the basement in the Pac-12 North with a record of 1-3. Down in the Pac-12 South, this is how things played out down there. The USC Trojans finished out the year with a record of 5-0 and a 17th national ranking. The Colorado Buffalo were in second with a record of 3-1. The Utah Utes finished third with a record of 3-2. The UCLA Bruins were fourth with a record of 3-4. The Arizona State Sun Devils finished fifth with a record of 1-5. And sitting at the bottom of the Pac-12 South, the only team to not win a game in either conference in 2020 at 0-5, the Arizona Wildcats. And, of course, those of you sitting there thinking, hey, must have been a great matchup between the Huskies and the Trojans on Friday night down there in L.A. for the Pac-12 championship. Well, that ended up not being the case. The Huskies couldn't play in the Pac-12 championship because they went into COVID protocol, so that allowed the opportunity for the Oregon Ducks to basically play for the title, and the Ducks ended up beating SC. I believe the final was like 31-24 or something like that. So the second place, or in this case, looking at things, the third place Ducks, obviously ending up with a with the Pac-12 championship in 2020 and get a chance to play in the Rose Bowl, which will not be played in Pasadena. Apparently this year they're moving the Rose Bowl, I guess, to somewhere in Texas this year, so that way I guess they can take advantage of trying to make some money off of a limited crowd capacity there. Hey, what do you expect? Dumbasses following the money trail. Shouldn't be having fans at all, but hey, unfortunately these businesses, I guess, got to somehow make their damn nickel and dime too. So, yeah, definitely an interesting season where the top team in the Pac-12 North doesn't even get a chance to play in the championship game. It's the second place team that ends up playing in it, and they end up being the repeat champion. This is the second year in a row, by the way, that the Ducks have won the Pac-12 title. So it definitely is going to be weird and interesting to see how things shape up with not just Cal football, but the Pac-12 conference for football as a whole next year, and really see how much this pandemic has an effect on things and how it will continue to have an impact on things going forward. That concludes things here on this edition of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. Of course, as mentioned, this is just the segment version of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. Yes, it's a podcast and a segment that's presented to y'all by a 97-year-old pile of dirt that overlooks a 97-year-old pile of concrete up in Strawberry Canyon up in Berkeley, California. And definitely we encourage you all out there that are A's fans that are also fans of the California Golden Bears, regardless if it's Cal football, the basketball programs, the baseball programs up there, if you're just a fan of everything that pertains to the California Golden Bears. Be sure to check out my side project, which is 6 shows old at this point in time now. Definitely encourage y'all, to, if you haven't had a chance to yet, to check out the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. And if you want more information on the Bear Raid, be sure to visit facebook.com/TightwadHillOfficial. Follow at TightwadHill23 on Twitter. You can also read information pertaining to the Bear Raid by visiting AsFANRadio.com/the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. You can view the live broadcast of the Bear Raid right here where you're viewing A's Fan Radio right now at twitch.tv/A's Fan Radio. And just like with past editions of A's Fan Radio, if there's a past edition of the Bear Raid that you didn't get a chance to watch, you can catch the past editions of the Bear Raid over on A's Fan Radio's YouTube channel, and there's the full URL right there for those of y'all to take a look at. One other thing as well that I wanted to make sure that I got into as far as I guess college football talk and just some football talk in general, since we really don't touch bases on football that much on this show anymore outside of the college football realm. Wanted to give a quick shout out to our good friend Chris Townsend, a.k.a. Uncle Townie, and the rest of you San Jose State alumni out there in the Bay Area and beyond, as, of course, your San Jose State Spartans finished the undefeated season, going 7-0 and winning the Mountain West Conference championship as they defeated Boise State a couple days ago by the final of 34-20. Very interesting outcome right there, and definitely a great season down there as the Spartans definitely showed some tack and just put on a hell of a season in a year that just sports world in general, just so much craziness impacting it, and probably one of the most dominant, probably the most dominant, or one of the most, if not the most dominant, San Jose State teams that they apparently have had down there since the 50s. I'm a little bit rusty on my San Jose State knowledge. If you had a chance to hear the Bear Raid yesterday, Donnie's a little bit more in tune with it than I did, and he mentioned some of that, so definitely get a chance to check that out if you haven't yet, and you can hear my boy Donnie talk about some of the things that San Jose State accomplished with this feat that they haven't accomplished in basically over half a century plus at this point in time. So again, shout out to Uncle Townie and the rest of y'all that, of course, went to San Jose State and graduated from San Jose State and on your undefeated season and winning the Mountain West Conference. Conference that usually Boise State's always been known to basically stomp a mud hole in everybody's ass in. And San Jose State actually has one more game on tap. They'll be playing in the Arizona Bowl on New Year's Eve against Ball State. So definitely you San Jose State alumni out there should definitely make sure to check that one out. And that's another thing that's going to be real interesting and crazy to watch, man, is what ends up happening with a lot of the bowl games going forward because of this, because you're actually seeing a lot of teams declining to go to bowl games because of various COVID issues and whatnot, and some bowl games being canceled. I want to say you had 5-6 teams. Basically, half of the Pac-12 was eligible for bowl games almost, and basically only 2 teams took invites. Oregon obviously taking the invite to go to the Rose Bowl after winning the Pac-12 North. Stanford had an invite, and I think a couple of those schools were invited too. And just Oregon, and I forgot who the other one was, accepting invites, and everybody else just basically like, nah, we're good. Don't want to deal with that stuff pretty much at this point also, man, just crazy year. Real quickly here, before I get on into my final thoughts, I'm going to go ahead and take this time now to check in and see how many of y'all actually chimed in and responded to the fan question of the night for this edition of AsFAnRAdio. The fan question, of course, for this edition of the show being is we wanted to know what your thoughts were on what Scott Brocious had to say about the Athletics recently, and also your thoughts on any of the other subjects we touched on during tonight's show. One comment coming on here, it's the only response from here. It's from our boy Soham Fadadir saying, don't take Boras seriously. Sorry, bro. In this instance, you do need to take Boras seriously because Boras is reiterating a lot of stuff that myself, Boss, and others have been saying in regards to the John Fisher ownership since Fisher bought this team. Damn near almost going on, will be 20 years in 2024, and still the same old shisty penny pinching ways and stuff. Again, I've never been a big fan of most of the crap that spews out of Scott Boras's mouth, but again, this is the one instance and one of the few times, probably the only time, where I actually do agree with what he says. And again, sorry, Soham, you do need to take what Boras is saying seriously. Again, especially if it does turn out that there is concern around the baseball world about the way things are operating down the road here from the new Dub 6 studios with our favorite team in the green and gold. Just a lot of stuff, like I mentioned, that's going to need to be addressed and answered at some point. So thank you, Soham. It was nice at least to have somebody respond to that. As mentioned, we always try to throw a fan question of the night at y'all every show. Maybe I do need to just start posting this thing earlier in the day, and maybe that'll be a better way to finally get some responses in regards to that. But thank you for the one person that did respond to the fan question of the night. And again, hey, check those out every show, man. We definitely will try to throw those out there every show. We had it set up where the question would be posted 5 minutes after the show went live on Twitch, but maybe, like I said, it's getting to a point now where maybe I need to start posting the question earlier. Just maybe it's because of the off season. You guys just don't feel like answering fan questions at this point in time. I don't know. I have to figure it out somehow, some way, get that all addressed. As always, ladies and gentlemen, for the latest information pertaining to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, be sure to check us out at AsFANRadio.com. Like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/AsFANRadio. Follow us on Twitter at As_fan_radio. And be sure to also check out any past editions of the show that you might have missed by visiting our YouTube channel. In case you missed the URL from the Bear Raid ad, I'm going to have to update this so I can include the URL in this. So I'm going to have to make sure to do that when I update things on here for the next time. I got to use this. For the time being, obviously, just go to YouTube, type in AsFANRadio as one word like you see right there, and our YouTube channel will pop up where you can catch past editions of AsFANRadio, the Kicking It with Koval segments, past editions of the Bear Raid, and pretty much anything else we decide to throw up on there as time goes on. And our next show broadcast, hey, we're finally actually going to do the New Year's extravaganza on New Year's, ladies and gentlemen. Who would have thought all these years of doing it, finally have decided, hey, let's actually do that crap on a New Year's for once. So show number 284, the New Year's extravaganza, will be coming at you on January the 1st of 2021 at 12:30 a.m. in the morning, 12:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to be exact, so that way I'm not confusing y'all with the time zones and all that. So yes, we will be coming at you finally with the New Year's extravaganza on a New Year's, so definitely be sure not to miss out with show number 284, the New Year's extravaganza smacks you upside the head on twitch.tv/AsFANRadio at 12:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the morning on New Year's 2021. That, of course, is January the 1st, 2021. And on that note, that finally gets us to my final thoughts of the evening. Those of you out there, obviously, that continue to follow, understand, and get where science and all those out there and our leaders are trying to get with these guidelines to help quell and suppress and curb this damn pandemic until the vaccines that are floating around are able to circulate and get to everybody. Thank you. I know it's tough. I know y'all are struggling. Many of you out there, are just, just like myself here, average Joes, just doing what you can to get by. Legally, obviously, I'm not encouraging trying to do any illegal stuff because I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't encourage y'all to do that either. But, everybody in some form or way is struggling. Obviously know people out there that are small business owners who are suffering from this, people in the restaurant industry that are struggling to stay afloat. It's fully understandable, just the frustration and anger from that. But also at the same time, look around at the numbers around here, people. We're basically at the point where damn near almost the entire state's ICU capacity is basically damn near at null, zero. It's hit that basically almost here in the Bay Area. You've had several places in SoCal and the Valley that have been at that for a while. And you heard me mention it earlier. You're losing basically a Pearl Harbor to a 9/11 every day at this point. One of the days this week, it was a 9/11 times 2. So again, I understand the frustration of not being able to operate your businesses or do all that stuff, but at the same time, is it really worth having those places operated and to serve as inadvertent hotbeds because of, individuals that don't know that they carry it and, don't show the symptoms, or the jackasses out there that want to continue to ignore the guidelines and continue to treat this as a hoax and continue to take it as a whole political thing because they're precious, poor, toupee-wearing orange con artist wants to continue to make a freaking political fuss about this stuff. And, that's almost something. I'm not even going to get into that. Just, people, you need to get your priorities straight. Pure and simple. We basically saw that, travel kind of led to basically the traveling around Thanksgiving period is kind of what led to a lot of these outbreaks you're seeing now. You're already getting reports of, over 1 million people in the last 2 or 3 days going through airport checkpoints around the country, which is going against what was advised. Y'all were told to not travel. That was a specific reason, and I kind of did it as a subliminal direct hint to get the point across when I played We Are Santa's Elves earlier and included that meme I made. I wasn't joking. You were basically being told, people, ho, 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 stay yo ass at home. Some of y'all are doing that. Some of y'all, unfortunately, aren't doing that. And those of you that aren't doing that, you're a bunch of selfish asshats. And, pray and hope you don't catch it. And, you know, it continues to baffle me that given what's going on out here, all the various, you know, people that are dying and all that stuff, that just people continue to want to be selfish, continue to want to just produce, my freedoms. People, stop being selfish. Stop thinking that this crap is a hoax. And, you know, I hate saying that there are people out there that still think this is a hoax. You got reports out there of individuals that are on their deathbeds from this stuff still thinking that they're not dying of it. That's, you know, just unfortunately where we are at some places around here. And, you know, thank you again to all of you out there who are taking this serious and are doing what you can to curb it by continuing to mask up, wash your hands, socially distance, and doing everything else. And, you know, I know that there's a lot of mixed, you know, reactions and thoughts about, you know, taking the vaccine or the vaccines, because there are 2 of them out there at this point. Obviously, a lot of you probably going to sit back and wait to see what happens depending on where you're at on the priority list. Unless, obviously, there's a significant showing of major-ass crazy reactions, I would probably encourage you to get at this point. I'm considering to get it at this point. It's not so much for, you know, my own sake, but it's to look out for members of my own family that I know are highly susceptible to catching that stuff. But, you know, that could, again, you know, that could change if I end up seeing something out there that shows a lot of people are not vibing and, you know, with this stuff for, well, there's a whole crap load of, you know, allergic reactions. That could change. But, you know, just again, there's, you know, a lot of crazy times still ahead of us, probably, people. And that's going to be the case until we properly quell this. So just, again, I understand times are tough. I understand y'all are stressed. I understand y'all are hurting. But continuing to just have complete, blatant disregards for other people's health and safety out there is not going to help things. It will just help continue to drag this thing on farther and farther and farther. Those of y'all that don't know, there was a documentary on earlier in the week basically taking a look back at how things played out when the Spanish flu pandemic went down at the end of World War II. And would you not be surprised and not be shocked to find out and hear that kind of a lot of the similar stuff that we're seeing play out right here, right now in the present with the way some have handled COVID? Guess what, people? Unfortunately, a lot of those same stupid mistakes were made by people over a century ago when the Spanish flu happened. You would have thought we would have learned from our mistakes of a century ago. Seems like, unfortunately, in some circumstances, we have not. So shame on you, and, you know, completely, you know, just screw you to those of you out there that continue to take a blatant disregard for this whole thing. And for those of you out there that are taking this seriously, again, thank you. We appreciate it, and just continue to do that. On that note, on behalf of everyone here that is a part of AsFANRAdio, and again, happy birthday to my man, the boss man, who was not able to join me tonight because of it being his 38th birthday. I am the legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown, who apparently almost inadvertently started the music a little bit earlier than planned. Getting all tongue twisted and crap. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown. Thank you for tuning in to this Christmas edition of AsFANRAdio. Y'all take care and enjoy the rest of your Monday night. The views and opinions of our cast, our guests, and our listeners are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the Oakland Athletics or Major League Baseball. Good night, Walter Haas. Good night, King Al. Your son's still a punk ass with a bowl cut who hopefully is about to see his team get bounced out of the playoffs. Haha. Karma's a bitch, ain't it, Mark? That's what you get for moving the Raiders to Las Vegas, you jackass. And good night, Chesty Puller, wherever you may be, taking care of the Marines of the past and the present and looking out for the possible prospects of the future. And hey, Good night, Auntie Di-Di. I love you. It was kind of a bit of a pain in the ass working through this, but hey, I did it, and even though I kind of didn't want to, I made sure to put that Christmas music on there because I know if I didn't, your spirit would probably be paying me a visit tonight and be kicking me in the tushy for not doing so. Thank you all again, as always, for tuning in to this fan-produced podcast, this long-standing show that is, of course, A's Talk from the fans' point of view that has been going on almost 18 years now at this point. Damn. Seems like it was just yesterday that we were just starting out with this bad boy over at La Estrelita, but man, just how the time flies. Thank you again for supporting us. Y'all take care. Be safe. Don't drink and drive. Wrap before you tap it. Wear a mask. Wash your hands. Socially distance. All that good old crap that I heard at Safety Briefs, and we've been reiterating at y'all since this pandemic started because we want to be able to hear and see y'all when we come right back at y'all on New Year's Day morning at 12:30 p.m. a.m. Pacific Standard Time for the New Year's Extravaganza edition of AsFANRAdio. So again, take care, y'all. Don't do anything dumb. We will see y'all on New Year's Day morning for the New Year's edition of the show. Until then, take care. Good night, Oakland and beyond. And as always, be sure to stay Oakland, my friends.
Let's